I'm sorry to announce that we've lost another hero in the culture war.
Mm-hmm. Another bastion of ideas.
Yeah,
has fallen.
First, it was Tucker Carlson. I don't even know if I can say first. First, it was Rush Limbaugh.
Basically,
before this story or before this show even began, and then we lost Tucker Carlson. He was fired from Fox News
unjustly
because his texts leak about hating Donald Trump, and it was just too much of a liability.
I'm saying whatever.
Tucker Carlson's gone, but now Candace Owens has been fired, or I don't know if it was voluntarily left the Daily Wire, but she's out.
Can you believe it?
I can't believe it.
Folks, can you believe it? And I'll tell you this, she didn't get fired for like being a Nazi, but she got fired for being a Nazi, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the Nazi comments and like collaborating with Kanye while he was doing all of that
was
kind of
when
fine.
When he said, especially, I'll chill right there.
Yeah, all of that was fine. But then when she came out against Israel, not for the right reasons, then that was too far for Ben Shapiro and the others. Jeremy Boring at the Daily Wire.
Exactly. You can actually go like so far as a Nazi, but you can't stop at specific steps at the Daily Wire.
Yeah, and like this point was made by Sam Cedar, but I feel like it's worth repeating. The sort of media tour that Candace Owens has been going on since she's been fired or since she left the Daily Wire reminds me that to right-wingers, especially the big commentators, it's all just a game to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's all just industry. It's all just show business. None of it's actually real. It's literally Hollywood for the Hollywood rejects that couldn't cut it with everybody else.
Well, especially with Candace Owens, considering how good she was at, like, I don't know, kind of just adopting whatever was popular.
Total grifter.
And taking the exact worst possible position you could take on it.
Every time.
I'm reminded of Breonna Taylor when that situation was going on, how she would just get out there and say the most factually incorrect things, twist the story in ways I thought you couldn't even twist it, saying that she was some violent drug dealer thug and that everything that happened was fine.
Yeah.
She would just get on Facebook Live and say that shit.
It's just so cynical, especially for people like Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro that most of the time know that they're lying about what they're talking about. It just, again, reveals to me that all of it is just for play. It's all just a game to them. None of it is about actual political positions that they can defend, that they think they should put forward to make the world better. All of it is just a way of making money. They see all of it as appearances, as performances. And it's just gross to me. And of course, there's people on the left that do this, right? Like, I'm sure you could point out liberals, mainstream liberals that have their own politics shows where they talk and they're clearly hacks. Yes, you could find those people. But I feel it's more prominent on the right, specifically because places like the Daily Wire have moneyed interests behind them. People like oil billionaires, and also PragerU, by the way, has like oil billionaires behind them that fund their show. And so all they exist for is to put on a performance while running defense for like the oil lobby or running defense for whatever right-wing project that they're supposed to be protecting. It's disgusting. It's gross. And I just, I don't like it. And Candace Owens getting fired reminds me of that because she's been going on various podcasts and speaking out.
When did she get fired?
A couple of days ago. I think,
and she's already just getting on the media tour?
She was on Breakfast Club, yeah.
A Breakfast Club?
Breakfast Club, yeah. They've kind of fallen off with the Nikki Haley interview as well. I mean, they're not a politics show, but my point here is that she's sort of starting up this media tour, and I'm sure she'll talk about it more when she starts her independent show. Maybe she'll go live maybe she'll have a show like Tucker Carlson on Twitter or something like that.
Oh, she'll probably take Don Lemon's spot.
But well, open spot at X.
Exactly.
But it shows me that none of these people are serious. Everywhere she's going to talk about what happened with the Daily Wire, none of it's about like actual political differences. It's all like personality clashes, interpersonal debate and disputes. It's nonsense. None of it's real. It's so frustrating.
It wasn't an issue when Candace Owens was doing the White Lives Matter thing, when she was hanging out with Kanye, when she was spewing Nazi rhetoric that wasn't direct necessarily like explicitly and overtly the Jews are bad, Israel is wrong. It was fine when it's Nazi stuff that doesn't directly compete with things that Ben Shapiro are saying.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that's my point is like, sure, she had a political position that Ben disagreed with, but the thing that I think the Daily Wire was mad about is that Candace Owens made Ben look dumb on the internet. Like, they're not mad about the political position itself. They're mad that she made Ben look stupid.
Not for the right reasons, though.
Not for definitely
not for the right reasons.
Not for the right reasons. And it's not hard to make Ben Shapiro look stupid, but when it comes from inside your multi-$100 billion company,
when she's on your payroll,
it's just it's crazy to me.
It is crazy.
The internet is a crazy place.
And I mean, it's only natural that Elon Musk fires Don Lemon for not even accusing him of being Nazi adjacent, of spreading Nazi propaganda, but just saying, hey, did you know you were doing this? He's gone.
Yes.
It's only natural that Candace Owens, someone who does spread that Nazi propaganda, would get the spot.
Yeah. Well, no, yeah, I think that she very well could end up on X. She said something about starting her own YouTube channel back before she was a DW personality. She did have her own YouTube show. Maybe she'll do that. I mean, it's not like she's going to be in dire financial straits, right? Like her husband is one of like the founding members of TPUSA. He's high up in that organization. Yeah. And so like when she cosplays as this sort of like when she adopts sort of progressive language, how she talks about Palestine, none of it's real.
She pretends to be like this like down to earth like mother. Mm-hmm. I remember when COVID was going on, that was like the angle that she took. She would just set up her phone, like handheld phone, like she's making a TikTok video, but it'd naturally be on Facebook Live, the worst platform possible. And she'd get on there like, as a mother, like what they're doing, closing down the schools is just wrong. Like these kids need to go out. It's what they all try to do. They're all people who have never had to worry about money, at least recently. They will never have to worry about money again. They are the furthest away from you and I as they could be.
Yeah.
But yet they just pretend. And that in of itself should be insulting.
Yeah, and let's be real, right? Like Candace Owens as a political commentator existed for a lot of people on the right just so they could point at a black woman and say, look, I'm not racist. She's saying the same things that I am.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the role she played for a lot of those people.
It was their DEI.
Yeah. Like that's the position she held on the right for a lot of her contemporaries on the right side of the political spectrum, because they could point at her and say, look, I can't be racist. She agrees with me.
Exactly.
How could what I be saying be racist?
Well,
she's
Candace Owens said white lives matter. Candace Owens said that was okay. So you guys are all wrong when you say that that's a racist statement.
Yeah.
Look, Candace Owens and Thomas Sowell backed me up. So
fucking Thomas Sowell. Oh, don't get me started.
Famous intellectual.
Famous intellectual taken very seriously by academics. But also, so internet's crazy. Internet's crazy. And I couldn't let us get away from this cold open without bringing up our own experiences on the internet this week.
Man, internet's crazy, man. Talk about Nazis, bruh.
Yeah, before we get to the Nazi thing, I just will say we posted our Dune 2 take related to Ben Shapiro last week. People still misinterpreting the movie, by the way. Not good. But yeah, so we posted on Twitter the other day. Somebody had reposted on Twitter a picture of the Statue of Liberty building the wall. Mm-hmm. Basically, the idea is like she would want us to build the wall type shit. And so I quote tweet it saying, inside of the Statue of Liberty on the pedestal or whatever, there's literally an inscription that reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." Uh-huh. It's a poem on the Statue of Liberty saying, come to the United States, like we will be safe harbor for you.
Just a general statement that says, hey, this symbol, the Statue of Liberty, is not a symbol for you. That's not the original intention. It's just this is kind of hypocritical type thing.
Yeah.
Man, you would not believe the response that we got.
A lot of people accuse Twitter, X, whatever, of being a safe harbor for, let's say, far-right reactionaries akin to those of the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah.
And, I've never thought those takes were necessarily exaggerated, but I hadn't met it head on until we made that post.
That's what I was going to say. We spend a lot of time on conservative Twitter. Most of our, who we follow on Twitter is conservatives, just so I can keep my finger on the pulse, you know what I'm saying? And usually, there's the occasional thing where I'm like, oh, he's talking about Jews there. That's what's good. There's the dog whistles, there's the regular neocon takes, and then there's some stuff every once in a while that's, genuinely insane. But that was my experience on it, so I wasn't too sure. Well, I had known from Elon Musk, basically, about all the Nazis on Twitter. But, man, did I not know until now just exactly the brunt of it.
And it's insane because we post that. It's a quote from the poem that's inscribed on the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty. And we got literally hundreds of comments coming in. There was a couple different ones. The more moderate ones were saying oh, but that doesn't determine U.S. law or policy. We never said that it does. It's just, it's what it symbolizes, right? But the others were explicitly Nazis.
Yep.
Some people came through with just screenshots of the author's Wikipedia page and underlined that she's Jewish.
Crazy.
Which is crazy thing to do.
Crazy.
Because she was literally born in New York, died in New York. She was an American.
Some people were just dropping dog whistles in the chat, the one where it's the 3 parentheses. I know that's a dog whistle because of the History Wizard. Mm-hmm. That's the guy that's our mutual on TikTok that goes through all the dog whistles, right?
Yeah.
I learned from his video that's a dog whistle. So I was like, oh, word, that's crazy. Someone's just dropping this. Mm-hmm. And then Like, they were getting to the point where I couldn't even recognize him anymore.
Yeah, nerd shit.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck? I swear to God, nobody has, I don't even want to say it's like esoteric knowledge about Jewish people, but it's esoteric knowledge about the Nazi canon.
Yes.
Than these fucking people, bruh.
It's
like,
so corny.
what are you doing?
No, for like 50 comments to immediately show up knowing that she was a Jewish author, that poem was added like 10 years after the pedestal or the entire Statue of Liberty was completed is insane to just know.
You're a nerd.
Like, you just memorize people that are Jewish or like famous American authors that were Jewish,
Or
so that you
famous poems. That poem what nerd?
Yeah, so that you can just like disregard the information when you hear it. That's crazy to me. And then the final type of person was just like posting hate symbols,
Just
like swastikas and stuff. Yeah.
And it was funny to me, exactly, like, I feel like a significant proportion of the people in our comments had AI generated Nazi profile pictures. Like,
Yes.
I saw this one dude had an AI generated dog with like a SS hat on. I saw other people that just had pictures of AI generated like women, which it's like, all right, Nazi and AI art, like, you're bottom of the barrel, dog.
Yeah. Or my favorite one, the anime PFP talking to me about degeneracy.
Like, what are you doing? Who do you think you are, brother?
Do you think you're the Ubermensch that the Nazis talked about, having a Nazi PFP posting behind anonymity on Twitter? Be so for real, dog.
A real man would get out and say it with his chest.
Yeah.
Like some people did, which blew my fucking mind.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. Some of our listeners, or like typical people we interact with on Twitter, were fighting for their lives in the comments.
Oh, yeah.
I would never recommend trying to argue with Nazis on Twitter or any platform, but kudos to you. You're a real soldier if you were down there.
It's like, if you are one of those, not one of our listeners, our humble, noble listeners that's engaging in a fight, that, you know, they're sacrificing their time for a fight. If you're one of the Nazis that's fighting on Twitter all day, brother, you'd have gone in the purge. Like, you would not make it.
No, you
like,
wouldn't have made
it. These are not the traditional values of masculinity that you embody.
It's so awesome.
That you attempt to embody. What is going on?
It blows, like, either they all like looked it up. I don't know how the tweet ended up on right-wing Twitter, but either they all looked it up or they all immediately knew, and they kept saying like, oh, people literally called it like Jewish graffiti.
Yes.
Like, it was added after, even though it's like on a plaque. The poem was written to raise money for the construction of the pedestal. It is entwined with the history of the Statue of Liberty.
And it had like won a contest, right?
Yeah.
Like, people,
and it's
many people came together to choose this poem.
To say this is like a part of the agenda by the cabal to like get more immigrants in the country is crazy. I was just talking about the symbolism.
That's it.
I think it's kind of a bar. Bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. Come on, that's cool.
It's good. And just honestly, the amount of people that just missed the fucking point and said, really, so we should base our immigration policy on it? Never fucking said that.
No.
I do not expect media literacy from Nazis, but goddamn, brother.
Yeah.
Goddamn. You're shadow boxing.
It's bad out here. What an unhinged week. Real bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Welcome back to Head in the Office. It's your boys coming back at you with more news.
That's what you boys kind of taking a more traditional Head in the Office episode.
Yeah.
We're talking about the budget all day.
Yeah, this reminds me of like the episode 10 to episode 40 era of
The
Head
Build
in
Back
Office.
Better
Yeah,
era.
the Build Back Better era, where we're talking about taxes, we're talking about money being spent, dollars down the drain. Not a ton of culture war in this episode outside of from what we just talked about with Twitter and Candace Owens and such, but we still got some good news. We got to talk about the budget.
Yes.
We got to talk about I wouldn't call that good news. We still have news that we'll talk about, and we'll make it good in our commentary.
Yes.
We got to talk about the budget. We got to talk about Donald Trump using the term bloodbath. People were pretty taken aback by that.
We got to talk about Donald Trump being broke.
Yeah, and I think you put something in here about student loans, I think.
It was a very brief thing. It's a very brief thing.
Okay, brief little news about student loans. But before we get into that, I'll remind you all, if you want to support the show, which we would really appreciate, head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. And if you're a new listener, we got a sort of influx of people to the Patreon the last couple of days, last week or 2 weeks or so maybe.
You always love to see it.
If you're new and you're listening early for the first time, welcome. Kick your shoes off, relax, maybe get a little snack, go on a walk even with us in your ears.
I'm saying.
Do something leisurely while you listen to our dual set tones give you the news.
Really just rejoice in the fact that you're not going to have to worry anymore about what happens on Monday and Tuesday and wait 10 days for our opinion.
Exactly. You'll be able to get the news quickly. And if you want to get the news quickly, commercial free, you know where to go. Patreon.com/InTheOfficePod. You can get some merch because it's getting warm outside. It's about to be like 50s, 60s in Michigan.
It's about to be another white boy summer.
Absolutely. White boys have been held back for too long. So if you want some t-shirts, some hats, you know where to go. HeadInTheOffice.com. All of that in the description. And lastly, if you want to support the show,
completely for free.
5-star reviews on Apple are always an option. You want to take this first one?
Yes, sir. Good show by Handsome Boys. I condemn Hamas.
Let's go.
That's a perfect review right there.
Let's go.
That's succinct.
Yeah, a little compliment, a little condemnation. You know that we need that. The next one, Me, You, and the Hiddo Boys, the 4 best friends that anyone could have by A. Russ 11.
I've been saying this.
If you're looking for factual-based political discussions that never feel partisan or one-sided, you've come to the right place. First, let me say that I condemn Hamas to the fullest extent. In fact, I condemn Hamas more than Joe Biden and every other Zionist combined. Now, with that out of the way, Jeremy and Gage truly get me through the week with their honest, educated, and A-plus takes on everything politics, with a few laughs along the way. Seriously, these guys talking, I'm over here giggling and kicking my feet for real. When I read these, I'm giggling and kicking my feet too. Pro tip, you can upgrade yourself from a Wednesday weenie to a Sunday supremacist to get the sermon 3 days early on Patreon. It's the best $10 I've ever spent recurring.
I've also been saying this.
Thank you for my non-parasocial besties for keeping me up to date and sane in this absolutely crazy climate that is our United States. While we still have TikTok, I'm glad it brought me to these fine fellows. Take a listen. You won't regret it. I have to agree with that review 100%.
Amazing. I'd full faith and backing right here. Full faith and credit right here with
full
me,
faith
with
and credit
this guy.
clause. Write that into the Patreon.
This is the next review. Certified Hood Classic Podcast by CPT Fatasma. Fuck, man. I butchered that.
It don't matter.
I don't matter. Been listening for a few months now and always love to hear some of the only nuanced leftist takes on the internet from our 2 quirked up white boys. Even if those communist Singaporeans rip TikTok from my clutches, I'm fully bought into the Church of Hiddo. Also, for the record, I fully support a Hiddo-backed coup of Canada.
Real.
As do we.
Yeah, I wish we could do a coup of Canada. You know, it was so successful the 7 times we tried to do it.
You know, I'll get out there. I'll cross the fucking bridge from Detroit. I'll walk it. I'll stop and say hi to Jared Goff first, and then I'll fucking walk past the bridge to Detroit. I'll bring the whole fucking Lions with me, right? I'll give it to Gibbs and he'll run straight to the Canadian house or whatever.
But it's actually a bomb.
But it's actually a bomb, and then it's ours now. I've annexed the territory.
Yeah, I'm gonna cross the Ambassador Bridge. I'm gonna just walk right over.
Actually, I'll go under the tunnel. I'll walk under the tunnel, even though that scares me.
Did you know that apparently, I don't know if it's the Ambassador Bridge or a different one, apparently one of the bridges from Detroit into Canada is privately owned?
What?
I didn't know you could privately own bridges.
I didn't know you
That's
could
ridiculous.
privately own like international land travel like that.
Yeah, apparently it's super complicated to work out between countries like a bridge. You know what I mean? Because you don't know where it's going to connect on both sides.
Are you incorporated like in Canada and the what the fuck?
Yeah, no, it's confusing for different countries because say Detroit doesn't want it to land in one area, but Canada wants it to land in one area. And obviously, if you start in one area, it's going to kind of determine where it goes because bridge has to be straight. But apparently, one of the bridges from Detroit to Canada is just owned privately, which I think is stupid. Like, obviously, the public can drive across it, but like, some dude owns it.
Is it a toll road?
It might be.
Or does the government pay some guy to just have a bridge, to just own a bridge?
Regardless of how it works, that shit's stupid.
I'm thinking
nationalize the bridges.
Civil asset forfeiture on this man right here.
Crazy. Anyway,
We're gonna pool up the Patreon budget and buy the bridge.
Yeah, maybe we should make our own bridge.
we should make our own toll road because that's the best way to run things. Look, no taxes.
If TikTok gets taken away, we got to raise money for the pod somehow.
Exactly.
We're building the next bridge to Canada from Detroit. Getting into the news here, we got to start off talking about the budget bill that was just passed by all of Congress, previously just the House.
Pretty much like the only thing to happen this week.
Yeah, it's pretty big though. Notable that the government didn't shut down and may have dire consequences for our boy Mike Johnson.
This is true
because he did his job, which is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Getting into the news, this past Saturday at the 11th hour, I think right past midnight, actually, the Senate passed a budget bill to fund the government through September 30th, which is only a few months away.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking about this again soon. But we funded the government through September 30th to avoid a government shutdown. This comes after the House passed the same budget a few days prior, which was pretty big news because the House passed it with a very slim majority, 286 to 134. The House actually needed 2/3 vote. I can't remember exactly why, or if that's just the general rule for budgets, but they had to get 280. They got 286. So just barely passed it.
That's crazy. I know Republicans, they're just struggling now. Even talking simple majority, they have a 2-seat majority right now. And I think someone just announced their resignation, so next week they will be having a 1-seat majority.
Wait, people are going to resign our way into a Democrat lead in the House?
Baby, that's crazy.
That's super slim. That's crazy. In the Senate, the bill passed a little more handedly with 74 to 24 votes. The weird thing in the House is that the bill actually passed because of Democrats more so than Republicans. So obviously the House is controlled by Mike Johnson. Republicans naturally had more authority, or I suppose influence, over this budget bill in the House. But it's actually the case that more Republicans voted against it than voted for it, I think by like a 5-person margin or something like that. So it was actually the Democrats that got this one to pass through the House.
Republicans are so great at governing. They're really good at getting things passed, making sure budgets don't shut down. I saw one Republican go on Fox News and say something like, hey, whoa, when a government shutdown happens, like 85% of it still works.
I don't know about that.
We have bills that get people paid anyway. Who cares?
Does he know what a furlough is? That's crazy. I have a sneaking suspicion that come September 30th, when we're right on the precipice of a November election, they're probably going to try to shut down the government.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't see any world where they don't shut it down right before Biden. People go out and vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Like it's too tempting of an opportunity not to.
Personally, I would do it.
Put me in. It's gone.
If I'm operating as a Republican, therefore I have no values whatsoever, I would do it.
100%. Yeah.
I mean, I can blame them. I think it's bad to do, but they're going to do it.
Well, if I'm a Republican, I'm saying I'm absolutely shutting down the government single-handedly. I'm knocking on all fucking 500 representatives' doors. I'm saying, do not vote for this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Look what happened under Joe Biden.
And then I'm going on the news and I'm saying, look what Joe Biden let happen.
Joe Biden can't govern.
Can you guys? I'm finding dirt on every single representative. I'm blackmailing them behind the scenes, closed door meetings, room where it happened type B. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And then I'm going on Hannity. Prime time, baby. And I'm saying Joe Biden did this.
Oh my, you're leading up to it. I'm getting invites to as many DC orgies as I can.
Yes.
And taking pictures. And I'm saying these are going to leak if you vote yes. These are going to leak if you let the budget pass. It's not happening.
Exactly.
Put me in. Put me in. I could make it happen. Anyways, in total, the budget was $1.2 trillion, a figure that many Republicans are not happy with. And in addition to a previous funding package that passed that included funding for the VA, the Interior, and Agriculture, Congress recently just approved $1.7 trillion in total for spending up until September 30th. So quite a lot. Obviously, this includes like every government activity that they have to do.
Ever. Notably, like half of it's the military budget.
Yes, yeah. So we can get right into to what this budget consists of. So the most contentious piece in the budget that Congress just passed was $62 billion for Homeland Security. This includes about $500 million to hire new Border Patrol agents, which I think will bring the agency up to having more staff than ever before. It included about it included $721 million for deportations, which is a couple $100 million more than what Biden wanted. It includes $3 billion for migrant detention, which would purchase 8,000 new beds, and $10 billion for ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Also, about $160 million for processing and asylum work. I don't know if this is an increase or a decrease from last year, but overall, it's a lot of money dedicated to harming immigrants and kicking them out.
Yes.
From what it seems.
Remember that.
Yes.
Please remember that. Like, Republicans did gain.
Yeah.
They did gain on the topic of immigration.
And they've been touting this as a victory. Mike Johnson was, because Mike Johnson's been under heat. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But he's been touting this as a victory, like, oh, but we got 8,000 new detention beds, which just means that's 8,000 or maybe more people that we can hold at the border.
That's 8,000 more kids in cages.
Yes.
Like, this is what, these are the detention, these are the overflow facilities if we're under a Democrat. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So overall, pretty bad. It's not the same as the bill that Biden's been talking about where he's like, look, Republicans talk about the border, but now they don't want to pass anything. But I have to assume a lot of this was inspired by that.
Definitely.
And I think the reason it passed is because a lot of Democrats are sold on the idea that Biden's been pushing at this point.
And it's also, you have to consider that because this is going to tie into something I'm going to bring up later with my favorite representative from Texas, Chip Roy. We also have to consider that a budget bill is not where you do sleeping legislative reforms.
Yes.
This is not where you reform entire agencies. This is you don't use a budget bill to, I don't know, do a bunch of crazy shit. You just do it to say, okay, you know what, this is how we're going to run. This is the balance sheet.
Yeah, that almost always comes later with amendments to the budget, or just like we talked about 32-hour work week last week. That's just an amendment to a previous piece of legislation. Like that's usually how these big sweeping changes come. And we don't expect that from a budget, but we can pretty firmly say that this piece for Homeland Security is pretty bad.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
No. No.
As you alluded to before, about half of all of the spending is the military. That's $824 billion, an increase of $27 billion from last year, because of course it is. And every year it increases, and every year the Pentagon's like, we straight up don't need this money.
We lost so much, or the Pentagon loses money.
Famously.
They famously cannot account for billions on billions of dollars.
Haven't passed an audit in like 6 years.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
I don't understand how we get here, but I know I was listening to Mike Johnson on, I think, MSNBC talk about the things that they passed. And in it, there was a pay raise for service members. That's fine, whatever. But also he touted how he's like, we got through and we cut $50 billion or $50 million from toxic DEI programs.
Come on, dog.
Like, dog, this is what conservatives get on here and yell about. They constantly talk about how they want to rein in spending, and they're just hyper-focusing on just niche shit.
50 million is like nothing compared to the total budget,
50 million compared to 862 billion? Fraction of a fraction, my friend. Like, I'm sorry. We're not even cracking 1% here.
How about you limit them to $500 on per chair? Office chair in the fucking Pentagon.
I don't think they all need fucking Herman Miller chairs or whatever the fuck it is.
Buying like $30,000 desks. Like, maybe you can limit that.
Yeah. They can go to IKEA.
Just like real Americans.
Exactly. Just like how we furnish this fucking office.
Yeah, you can look for a desk that's under $200 for each person working at the Pentagon. You do not need the big ones.
You don't need to allow contractors to charge you $300 for every bolt that's on a plane that's not ever going to fly. Like,
exactly. We're wasting money. And we don't even know where the money went. Can't even account for it.
Y'all want to say Social Security is the big issue. Oh, it's elders being able to live.
Fucking ridiculous.
God.
The bill or the budget also sends $3 billion to Israel, which sucks. Even worse, though, it prohibits the U.S. from sending any money to UNRWA, which is the one major Palestinian relief organization through the UN.
I think it's the only relief organization that is able to actually get into the interior of Gaza.
Yeah, and it's got like 13,000 employees or something.
Yeah, notably, it has 13,000 employees. Why I think this was happening, though, is because I think a UN investigation just took place this last week or the week before that found that 14 members are associated with Hamas.
Oh, of course.
Oh my God, less than 1% of this, not even less than 1%, less than 1% of this organization has been associated with Hamas. The organization that operates in Palestine, that I would assume has Palestinians as a part of it, some of them worked with Hamas.
Dog, I bet like every humanitarian organization has some members that are like extremists for the country they operate in, because like they're humanitarian aid, like they see the worst of it.
I'm saying the U.S. government has extremists within it. The U.S. government has Matt Gaetz, a child sex trafficker.
Exactly. We do nothing about that. He still gets his bills paid.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's pretty bad. And I think this is the first time we've seen a budget prohibit the U.S. from sending money to this group. So really not good stuff out of the budget here. It included $79 billion for the Department of Education, which is a decrease of about $500 million from last year, although funding for Pell Grants and other federal student aid for college students stays the same, so nothing really to report there. $14 billion for the Department of Labor, which is slightly lower than last year, but funnily, $5 billion more than what Republicans wanted.
Nice.
Nice. That's cool. $12 billion for the IRS, which is also more than what Republicans wanted. But I will also note that this budget takes away $20 billion in funding that was given to it by the Inflation Reduction Act. If you recall, the IRA gave the IRS $80 billion total. This budget takes away $20 billion of that. And I don't know why.
I think it was going to double the amount of agents that actually work at the IRS. Dark Brandon's Dark Army, if you recall.
Yeah, and one of the things, you all may have seen this since it's tax season right now, but the IRS just launched their pilot program that is completely free for filing your taxes online.
Yes.
Not in Michigan, unfortunately, but it's like 14 states around the country. It's the pilot program. They're able to do this kind of thing because they get additional funding, right? Like they have the people to do it. And here's one example of Republicans straight up just trying to take that money away. Not good.
The Republicans wanting to make you pay TurboTax like $150 every year
ridiculous.
to be able to do your taxes.
Absurd. Then, of course, within the budget, there's funding for miscellaneous government activities related to salaries, administration, just general government stuff that we always see. Overall, pretty bad. Pretty bad. Democrats ensured it wasn't as bad as it could have been, I suppose. Mike Johnson didn't really extract that many concessions, I suppose, except on the Homeland Security stuff. But it's what we expected. More funding for Israel, more funding for the Department of Defense, because it always gets more. Not much new for regular people, but as you said before, we don't usually expect those sweeping changes in a budget bill anyway.
It's crazy. And it's also like on the topic of Israel, yes, it's disappointing. I don't think there's a single person in Congress that would have been able to the momentum with the people that are in Congress right now is so stacked against just cutting funding for Israel. Something that's just to be expected, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it's better than $14 billion, I suppose.
This is true.
$3 billion.
What Biden originally wanted was $14 billion, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I also saw some reporting. I don't know if this made it into the official budget bill, but I think Biden was trying to push for the $3 billion to be recurring. So it's just always in the budget automatically.
Why, brother?
I don't know.
What are we doing? He's like,
Maybe
I don't like Netanyahu. I don't like this guy, but I want to give him $3 billion every year.
If it wasn't Biden, it was a Democrat. I'm pretty sure it was trying to do that. Make it recurring.
Brother.
If that's false news, if that's fake news, let me know in the comments. But that's just some reporting I saw. It might not have made it into the budget though. Yeah. I hope not.
Wasn't the Ukraine money passed in a separate bill like last week too?
I think Ukraine was actually included in this.
Was it in this one?
I must have missed it, but Ukraine funding did get passed, at least at some point, which we'll talk about in a moment, is the reason why Mike Johnson is in some hot water right now.
Oh, of course, that's the one reason. Yeah. All the shit that's going on in here, and it's...
And it's like the far righters in the Republican Party have like lost this idea of concessions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they've lost not that like compromise was ever really how the government worked. It's always about obstruction. But I feel like they've lost sight of the fact that like you got to give something up to get something sometimes. Like he gets the harsher border policies through spending however many billions more on Homeland Security. And so, yeah, you give up the Ukraine funding a little bit, but they're not letting that fly.
Yeah, no, they're children. They are literal toddlers who never learned about sharing. It's crazy. And in comparison, it kind of makes Mike Johnson look like just a regular dude. And we've covered how awful Mike Johnson is many times on this podcast. Since he was voted in for Speaker
really bad.
5 months ago. We've dedicated many segments to talking about how awful he is. I was listening to this MSNBC interview with him. He just came across like a regular guy, and I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, well, and importantly, when Kevin McCarthy was the speaker, he was against Ukraine aid. One of the reasons Mike Johnson was angry back then was because Ukraine aid, and here he passed it.
But it's because in this interview Mike Johnson was talking about, they brought up how they needed a lot of Democrats to get this passed because of such a slim majority or the 2/3 thing, whatever. And he's like, yeah, that's just how it works. We had to get Democrats to do it, so we had to make concessions. And I was like, wow, I feel like I've never heard this from a conservative before. Well, I'm just so used to dealing with the Matt Gaetz types.
Yeah, it's like as soon as they get into a leadership position in this House, Republicans just have to moderate. They just can't do it, which of course puts pressure on them from the farther right fringes that will kick you out as soon as they get a chance, which might be happening. Spoiler for a little bit later on in this episode. And to be clear, of course, there's probably hundreds of places that Republicans wanted to cut that they just couldn't get done.
We can get into it.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
We can get into it if we want to. And it could have been really bad. The Republican Study Committee released their version of the budget a few days prior to this one passing, which included cuts to Medicare, Social Security, and Obamacare, reversals on progress made with the ability to negotiate prescription drug costs. Sick. I love it when diabetics have to pay more than $35 for insulin. I love it when diabetics have to ration their insulin so that they can survive.
Yeah, negotiating drug costs is something that straight up drives the cost of Medicare down, by the way, because you're negotiating. You make the cost cheaper.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I also love them constantly saying like, oh, we don't want to cut entitlements, and then trying to cut entitlements. They do it every time, but no one ever believes us.
It's great. I also think another notable inclusion in the Republican Study Committee's version of the budget is language that endorses a national abortion ban. Brother, this is the budget. what the fuck are we doing?
That's awesome.
This is the budget.
So this was just from the Republican Study Committee, which isn't like a far-right group inherently.
Co-signed by 174 members of the House.
Bro, Republican Study Committee loves to cook. This is the same group that wanted to cut free universal school lunches in the states that were doing it.
That's exactly what I was getting to. And again, what I wanted to highlight is the elimination of the community eligibility provision of the school lunch program,
That's awesome.
Which is the provision that allows schools to blanketly offer free meals to every kid within the school without the need to apply and go through administrative burden that is just applying for these programs. There's a lot of parents and kids out there that qualify and need free lunch that don't get it because their parents don't want to apply for whatever reason. Whether that reason be they're embarrassed, they don't want to, or they don't want to get a handout from the government. There are kids out there suffering because of these burdens.
Yeah.
If we can feed them, that is unambiguously a good thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
And there's also families that aren't eligible but still struggle economically.
Yes.
You know, it still costs some amount of money to like have your kid pack a lunch or pay for lunch through the school. So a universal free school lunch program just makes sense. I mean, we're talking about kids here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not even talking about like I think food generally should be a lot more affordable, if not free. You know, it's a necessity of life.
100%.
But we're talking about kids that can't work. At least for now.
At least for now. Well, in Florida, maybe we're going to inch lower and lower and lower, but that's okay according to people on our Instagram comments. But anyway, just it's just a good thing. And the community eligibility provision just allows schools to give it to everyone.
Yeah.
You don't have to apply. Everyone at the school gets free lunch. And I know a lot of the conservatives in the committee were taking beef with that like language in general. They're saying, well, if you don't need it, you shouldn't get it. You should make people apply, which is one, a barrier that stops kids who need it from getting it. And two, me personally, I think it's unambiguously good to feed kids, even if they could afford it.
Also, what happened to states' rights?
I'm saying
this is state governments deciding how they want to apply this program.
Local government deciding how they want to apply this program. This is as small government as you can get.
Yeah.
Incredibly tiny. And even if you're someone who does not need the free lunch program, but you're at a school that offers it to every person, you could use that fucking $5 a day that you'd be giving your kid for lunch to, I don't know, feed them a more nutritious meal at dinner because that lunch is shitty no matter which way you slice it, right?
Yeah.
You can give them more money for dinner. You can use that money towards childcare costs if you have even littler ones. You can use that money towards any of the things that are just ballooning in this economy that they love to talk about so much.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just good, and it's another example of how conservatives will do anything but take a principled stance for something good.
Yeah, they're allergic.
They are principally against feeding children, man. It's awesome. Bonkers.
And to me, what this translates to is that Democrats across the country, specifically in places like Michigan and Minnesota, have been at a state level implementing policies like universal free school lunch that are incredibly popular.
Yes,
parents love it, students love it. It's a popular thing. You're feeding kids. Who could be against that? And Republicans don't want this to happen, but they know they can't campaign against it because then they just look like demons. So instead of doing that at the federal level, they just want to make it impossible to do. It takes away a thing that Democrats can put on their agenda by making it basically illegal.
It's just crazy, the concept. Like, I remember in high school and middle school, there were times where I would go into lunch debt.
Yes,
not because, like, my mom couldn't afford to, like, give me the $5 I needed for lunch that day. Sometimes it was just because I forgot to bring the money to school, and they said, okay, you get one. You're in lunch debt now. If you don't bring me the money, you can't eat tomorrow.
Bro, lunch debt's a crazy idea.
And it's like, what, brother? I'm 13. I'm 13 years old. I'm not responsible.
Yeah, no, lunch debt as a concept is crazy for kids. What do you mean I can't go to work?
That's what I'm saying. And it's like I forget my lunch money like 2 days in a row or something, or my mom forgets to go on the online portal and add the money in my bank account. I don't eat.
Yeah,
I still got to go to swim practice. Like, what are we doing?
I got to go to classes. I got to go to practice. I got to do all kinds of things.
I got a test today, and I'm in lunch debt. I'm stressing.
That's crazy. And conservatives want to make it so universal free school lunch just can't happen.
They want me to be in lunch debt. They want you and your children to go into lunch debt. You know, I think it's a good lesson, really, to help them get used to the world that they're going to be living in.
Oh, exactly.
Help them understand that fucking nothing free in this world comes, and you get money, you should pay it back.
Well, exactly. When you go into debt, you pay it back, much the way they're going to have to when they go to college.
Exactly.
You should know that the education system is going to put you in debt, and you should pay back those debts, brother. When I take on debts, I pay them back. Personal responsibility. That's
what I'm saying. When I'm in Congress, you know, I'm raising school lunch prices. I'm raising school lunch prices. I'm teaching kids the value of a hard day's work.
Well, think about it. When they're in in school, they have a monopoly on lunch prices. You might as well raise them, and that encourages parents to work harder.
Oh, true. That it would actually encourage parents to work harder to then pack their kids cold lunch. And so that they can bring their own lunches, because we'll just raise the prices so high through the roof, but still have to stock the food, and then we'll throw away all that extra food.
Oh, and then we can fire the cooking staff. We don't need them anymore.
And then we're Ben Shapiro, and we can say that, oh, actually free lunch programs are bad because they waste food, because sometimes kids don't eat all their food.
Yeah, exactly. What, you want them to be slaves or something? You want the cooking staff to be slaves? Nothing's free.
Yeah, what the fuck? You think it's free? You think they shouldn't be compensated for their labor even though they already have a job? They're already being paid for this? It doesn't matter if the kids eat it or not? God damn.
Man, that's so good. I need them to go mainstream with this take. I need it.
I got some news for you.
Wait, really?
I mean, this is about as mainstream as you can get.
Oh,
the study committee coming out and putting just 174 elected representatives just behind this. That's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like we can never get them on camera saying, like, we need to cut universal school lunch.
Well, it's easy to do it with the anonymity of a signature.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somehow your signature in Congress is anonymous.
Yeah.
Well, not actually, but nobody pays attention to it.
Yeah. Well, does that finish us off on the budget itself?
There was also a provision where they wanted to just cut funding from the NLRB. So that was cool.
Sick. I wonder why.
Pro-labor policies, you know what I mean?
That had to have been the Koch brother just coming in and saying, do something about this, man. This is getting a bit too much for me.
I'm saying.
You know what one of my favorite activities is?
What?
Reading.
Oh, I love reading. I love literature.
And one of my favorite things to read are the reviews we get on Apple Podcasts.
Always.
Not only do I love to read them, but it's a really great way to support the show. If you want to help us out, go and leave a 5-star review on Apple. As always, we read them here on the show. And if you want to make me happy, if you want to become my non-parasocial friend,
that's right.
One step on the 1,000 steps that it takes to get there is to leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'd really appreciate it.
Just remember, my friendship, it's for sale. And if you want to become one of my friends, you can go to the Patreon, or completely for free, you can leave a review on Apple. And even if you don't want to become my friend, don't you want to see another human smile?
Exactly. So consider leaving a review on Apple. It really helps out the show. It's a free way to do it. And you'll be one step closer to being a real friend of ours.
Exactly. Now with that, back to the episode.
So moving on from the budget here, but still talking about Congress, Mike Johnson is in trouble.
Yes.
He's struggling a little bit.
He's been a bad boy.
Republicans view these recent budget negotiations as a failure. At least the more far-right fringes of the party view this as a failure. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has filed a motion to vacate the speakership against Mike Johnson. Remember, it only requires one person to file. We'll see if this goes anywhere.
Can anyone in the chamber file, or is it only people in the party who he's leading?
I think anybody can file it, but like if a Democrat does it, it doesn't really mean anything, right?
I feel like they could get 1 or 3, I guess, if they have a 2-vote majority. Like, why don't they just file these motions all the time?
Well, we can get to why maybe Democrats won't allow this to happen. But if this does go through, the House would descend into chaos the same way it did back in October, a meager 5 months ago, I'll add, when Kevin McCarthy was kicked out of the speakership. Specifically, though, Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's doing this against Mike Johnson because Speaker Mike Johnson allowed Ukraine aid to get through on the budget talks, as I said before.
Man.
I have a quote here from NBC that kind of summarizes the situation. Greene did not file the motion as privilege, which would force a vote within 2 legislative days, but instead as a regular motion, which could be referred to a committee where it would likely languish. Greene told reporters that her motion to vacate was, quote, more of a warning than a pink slip, saying she does not want to, quote, throw the House into chaos like the 3.5 weeks that the chamber was without a speaker when McCarthy, her close ally, was ousted. So I don't know what you make of that, but it kind of seems not as forceful as it was before.
Why is she going only 50%?
That's what I'm saying.
Why are we not? If we're gonna launch this out there, if we're gonna make enemies of, I guess, the rest of the Republican House that doesn't want that realize that McCarthy's situation was an optical blunder, why are we putting ourselves at odds with them without going all the way?
Yeah, why don't we just do it?
Why don't we force the vote?
No half measures.
Half measures.
Force the vote. You could adopt the slogan. Now, unfortunately, as we sort of alluded to, it doesn't seem like there's enough votes to make this happen right now. Even far-right members of the House, like Matt Gaetz, aren't sold on the idea. His reasoning was that if we do this, then I can't guarantee that we won't just get Hakeem Jeffries in the speaker role because some moderate Republicans will just like get tired of it all and let a Democrat win. So that was his reasoning. And also, believe it or not, it's not even clear that Democrats would vote for this motion unanimously.
Why?
Moderate Democrat Tom Suozzi, who just won George Santos' seat a couple of weeks ago,
right,
said that he would vote to keep Speaker Mike Johnson.
Did
if the
George
vote came
Santos
up.
vote to vacate, or was he already kicked out before that?
But back in October, he was still there. I don't remember if he tried to save Kevin or not.
I was gonna say maybe George should be in the seat.
Yeah, I miss him.
Maybe George should have been there. This fucking Tom guy.
Yeah.
Kind of whack.
Fucking
if I
Tom
do say
Swazi
so
from Long
myself.
Island. First of all, Long Island.
Ugh.
You know what I'm saying? Long Island. But also, like, come on. Throw it into you guys aren't going to get anything else done anyway.
No, that's what I'm saying.
This is it.
Like the only thing you could maybe get done, which is never going to happen in a million years, is the immigration bill, and I don't want that to happen personally. So
Yeah.
I am cool. We got the budget. The budget's good. The government's not shutting down until at least September 30th. Shit, fucking pull the trigger.
You're not passing another thing that's good for Democrats at least until then in the House. You know what I mean? Like you're not getting another budget passed before September 30th. You're not getting any big piece of sweeping legislation. Why not make the Republicans look bad for like 3 weeks again?
Exactly. I don't know what else is possibly on the agenda that they really want to be pushed through.
It's just the immigration deal. Nothing else can happen. Even that's like a 10% chance of fully passing.
It's not passing.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe the TikTok ban, but the House already passed that. You know,
that's
like
true.
they don't need to do
They
that
can
now.
do whatever. Oh no, they're worried about the Senate not passing it or amending it and it getting set back. Bro, just do it.
Yeah,
pull
just
the trigger.
Do it. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. We might still get this to happen. All you need is a simple majority. So what would that be? 218 to whatever else.
Yeah.
All you need is a simple majority in the House to kick him out, as according to the rules that were passed under Kevin McCarthy. If Marjorie Taylor Greene can get enough people riled up on her side, you know, just a handful of Republicans, and every Democrat, I guess, except Tom Swazi votes to kick Mike Johnson out, then that's it, right? It's not a hard threshold to get to in a House that doesn't like Mike Johnson.
Yeah.
But if you don't get enough Republicans and you even have some Democrats defecting, it doesn't seem possible. So kind of 50-50.
But it's also like, why wouldn't they take the shot at getting Hakeem Jeffries in?
Exactly.
Why,
Right?
why wouldn't they do that?
The only explanation I can think of for like Tom Swazi, who's in a sort of purple district, and any other moderate Democrats, I think there's like 2 others named in the story that I saw, is that they're in more moderate or more red districts and it's an election year. That's what they're worried about. But like, do your constituents care? Like, will they think like, oh, well, back in March or April or whatever, they voted to kick Mike Johnson out? They're not going to care.
I was gonna say, it seems like nobody fucking gives a shit about what goes on within the chambers. They only care about the outcomes or their perceived outcomes of what happens beyond the chambers after legislation has been signed into law or after something big happens. Nobody is going through and looking at, oh my God, which conservatives voted to oust McCarthy? I can never vote for them again. Oh my God, did this Democrat violate these sacred halls and vote to oust Kevin McCarthy and make Republicans look dumb, which they are?
Like,
I can't vote for
cares.
him.
Nobody cares.
And if
at
you
all.
do, you're a loser.
Like I'm sure you can find a way to win and kick out Mike Johnson because nobody cares about this procedural stuff.
Yeah.
Like this isn't going to get anybody to come and vote for you.
Exactly at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Very bottom of the barrel. I can go out, I could go door knocking and I would not find a single person that's like, oh, that guy voted out.
I would even argue that, like, of course it matters how you campaign, but a lot of this election is going to be determined by turnout for the president and down ballot effects from there.
Absolutely.
Like, obviously, don't run a sleeper campaign. If you're like in a moderate district, you should try as hard as you can. But this is going to be so far down on the list of things voters are thinking about when they turn out to vote for you or your opponent. Just take the shot and make Republicans look bad.
No one is voting split ticket Biden and against the guy that voted to oust McCarthy.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
Or oust Johnson. Like, come on, let's be realistic here.
It's stupid. Another thing to consider is that Marjorie Taylor Greene herself is sort of a pariah at this point. Of course, last time it was Matt Gaetz that initiated the vote to kick McCarthy out. This time it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been kicked out of the Freedom Caucus after trying to protect Kevin McCarthy and is now doing this without much inter-party support. It doesn't seem like she was planning for this the same way Matt Gaetz was. It could just end up being a gimmick for attention, which she got. You know, she was interviewed by a bunch of people. But now the House is on break for 2 weeks, and we won't really get much news until they're back in session and maybe this motion actually goes somewhere.
Crazy that the House gets a Easter 2-week break, but I get 2 weeks all year.
Yeah.
All year to disperse amongst everything.
Yeah, Congress takes like all of August off as well.
Yes.
And I swear, like, they'll be on for like 4 weeks and then take a week break. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, and they never get anything done. And they're talking about being working men.
And if anything, they should be working like 6 days a week, 10-hour days.
Elected representatives should be a hard job.
They should be at work way more than we are.
Everyone that works in Congress should get aged like Obama did throughout his presidency. You should come out gray.
Well, and Republicans are out here like opposing the 32-hour work week. They only go to Congress 3 days a week. Oh, Tuesday through Thursday, baby.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah, sure, sometimes they stay up. I stay up all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm at work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. On this Sunday, I'm here in the stew.
They'd be like, "Well, we're in our districts doing work with our constituents." No, you're not.
No, you're not. You have never taught. You talked to your constituents once when you campaigned, and then you ignored them for a year and a half, and then you're just now starting to talk to them again.
Maybe you did a phone call rally once. Yeah. I get notifications for those with Haley Stevens all the time. I don't even live in your district.
This is kind of a little bit off topic, but I was me and my girlfriend just looking for some things to do last Saturday, and we went to like this St. Patrick's Day parade in I think Pinckney, Michigan.
Okay.
And during the parade, it was like regular parade things, blah, blah, blah. But there were a couple notable moments that just had me fucking dying, bro. Because we have to consider this is in Livingston County, which is, I think, one of the most red counties in in Michigan in general. At first, some kid was sitting on the curb, as kids do during parades, right? Just waiting to get candy. And the guys are coming through with their fucking guns and flags. And this old guy looks at this kid and he says, "Stand up for the flag." That's crazy. That was crazy. I started laughing in bro's face when that happened. And then things are going on. It's a regular parade. We're kind of giggling at the things that are happening. And we got to the political section of the parade, which I was not expecting at all. I forgot it was an election year, believe it or not.
Exciting for a guy like you.
And the Republicans start coming through. And this guy who's campaigning for a representative, conservative, only went up to families and only went up to the men in the families and shook their hand and introduced himself and did not say anything to any other demographic. And also, only white people are here.
Yeah, well, of course.
Only white people, wall to wall, right? He goes up to every man. He's like, "Hi, I'm Tom, whatever the fuck. I'm Tom Conservative. I'm hope to be representing you." And only handed out pamphlets to men.
That's so awesome.
That was gas. But honestly, a moment that I think topped that is we got to the Democrat section. And this guy's running for, I think, more local office. It's this old dude. He's like in his 70s, right? Walking. Real Joe Biden looking guy, right? Okay. And he goes around and he's himself passing out candy to kids. Already a dub for Democrats. But during it, he's going, "Candy, candy, Democrats. Candy, candy, Democrats." Just out loud, just creating that casual association, man. Oh my God, that shit was killing me.
Put the work in. He's playing the long game.
That's what I'm
saying. Will be dead before he can see his effects realized. You know
and he's a hero for that.
He is.
He's a martyr.
Yeah, that's crazy. Only talking to the men is awesome.
Only talking to the men got me.
These are the same dudes that are like, yeah, we should go back to households we should go back to it being one vote per household. The man votes for everyone.
Voter ID laws. And you shouldn't be able to get an ID without your husband's consent.
Exactly.
Not a man's consent, your husband's, as well as a credit card.
Yeah. Oh, man. So looks like maybe Mike Johnson won't be doing so well. But that ends off at least what I had prepared for Congress.
I wanted to talk about another Republican. I teased it. I foreshadowed him a little bit before. Chip Roy.
Again, I got a chip on my shoulder, baby.
Favorite man out of Texas. Favorite representative. He is very upset about the passage of this bill. Chip decided to tie this issue with what seems like the number one issue in the country right now, immigration, saying that the funds dedicated to pay Border Patrol and fund processing centers so we can comply with international asylum law are really just funds for Biden's open border policies. He said that on Fox News that the money for processing centers is so that the administration can let more people in. It's not so they can, hold people or do whatever like they have been, kids in cages, a popular talking point. It's so they can process them into the country and just let everyone who's coming through the border just rip across it.
I swear, does he know what ICE does?
No, I mean, this is what I'm going to get into in a little bit, but they just fucking lie.
Yeah.
These representatives just get on here and lie.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to put it, right?
Isn't Chip Roy the same guy that said, I'm not too excited to help a damn Democrat right now?
Probably.
I think he was the same. You brought him up a couple of episodes ago where he was just like, yeah, I don't want to pass this immigration deal.
Recurring favorite. Yeah. Recurring favorite.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show. He's a good guy. And this is what I wanted to get into. So it might stay off topic again, but stay with me. Now, everyone distrusts politicians. I think we can all agree with this. This is very common sentiment.
Slimy.
Just colloquially.
Yeah.
You can go to people who don't vote, especially people who don't vote, and see that they distrust politicians. And we have 3 years of audio detailing exactly how we don't trust them in many different ways, right? But I feel like I generally hear this rhetoric more from conservatives. I think it's conservatives are the ones that really hammer home how distrustful representatives are, how distrustful politicians are. And I feel like the call is coming from inside of the house. Like, think of like representatives, conservatives campaigning. It is always, you cannot trust the government. It's the Reagan line. What are those famous 8 words, right?
Yeah,
it's the Reagan line.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Scariest words in the English language.
I am running to be a representative in the government, but you cannot trust the government at all. Democrats don't campaign on that. Democrats campaign more on like being appealing. I'm not saying that they are trustworthy. We know how that goes. But I think it's conservatives that talk about that kind of thing more.
Yeah.
And they're so much more willing to do it. And it's the reason conservatives are so much more willing to do the thing that is why the general public hates politics. And that is they will play the game of politics more. And that's exactly, and the immigration issue is just the perfect microcosm of what I'm trying to talk about here, right? Here we have Chip Roy going and pretending to be this champion of law enforcement, making sure that we protect our borders at all costs and not let any more illegals in. In this Fox News interview, he said Biden is funding processing centers that are processing people into the country like the person that killed Laken Riley. He is getting on here and he's fucking doing the thing, pretending to be this big law and order guy, while also sitting behind while Republicans just openly block Biden's immigration bill, which is everything that Donald Trump wants and more. This is everything that Chip Roy is talking about here in this Fox News interview and more. Yet he refuses to pass it. Biden is telling you that he will shut down the border on day one. I disagree. I think it's a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. But he doesn't. He doesn't. And he's just playing politics here.
Yeah.
They say one thing, they do another thing, all for playing the political game. And it's like, again, like I mentioned before, one, the budget bill is not a place where legislative reforms occur. This is not where broad sweeping things happen. Chip Roy should know that as a representative, but he's taking advantage of the fact that his constituents don't, and that Republicans generally, or just the general electorate, don't know that or don't pay enough attention to figure that out. And two, he and his colleagues are actively blocking legislation that goes way beyond Trump's agenda.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Like, conservatives get out here and claim you can't trust a politician, yet the politician is lying to you in front of your eyes. Your guy is lying to you in front of your face.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a case of people kind of just repeat what they're told, right?
Definitely.
Like we have, I think of, this makes me think of a Ben Shapiro debate I watched one time where someone was arguing that Democrats are more effective at governing than Republicans. And this person was measuring by like bills passed during the Joe Biden administration. And Ben Shapiro says something along the lines of like, well, I don't want government to pass bills. Like, I don't view that as a sign of success or effectiveness. I want less bills passed, right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the ideologues and the politicians, I think they view government as inherently something that's bad, something that should be stopped, something that should be obstructed. But when it comes to conservative voters, they sort of just repeat what they hear on things like Fox News or from their politicians, but they benefit greatly from policies like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, whatever else, whatever other government policies they benefit from. And I think they kind of just repeat those talking points while their politicians purposefully exist to obstruct government from governing.
Yeah.
They don't think, at least the ideologues don't think government can ever be a force for good, whereas us as leftists, very critical of the government. But we do think government intervention can be a good thing, and often is if it's, in favor of working class policies to support marginalized groups. We don't hold this sort of like government is inherently bad attitude like conservatives do. And this is a thing Sam Cedars talked about for a long time. He's been in politics a long time and he's debated many libertarians. And their main goal when they get elected is to do nothing, right? Like it's like Jim Jordan, right? He's never passed a bill in his entire tenure, but that's not viewed as a bad thing for him because his goal isn't to pass bills, it's to cause problems.
Well, I think it's also, there was a group of, I think it was 42 conservatives that wrote a letter to Mike Johnson saying, you cannot let this bill pass. This only helps the Democrats, which is just a fucking blatant lie, right?
Yeah.
Blatant lie. They said conservatives get nothing in this. Again, a blatant lie. When out of that group of 42 representatives, I think MSNBC pointed out that only one of them has ever voted for a budget to pass.
That's crazy.
Like, this is 42 people. This is a significant significant proportion of the House of Representatives that just exists to just yell and scream and do nothing, which is, it's nuts. And it's a case of like, I guess the conservative perception creating reality. You perceive that government is wrong and that government can only do these bad things, and you elect people that go and don't allow government to do good things, creating the reality that the government can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's so fundamentally absurd, man.
Yeah, and maybe I would also add like another fold where there are certainly conservatives that just want to stop the government from operating, but there's also those that, you know, advocate for quote unquote small government, but in reality want government to be enormous, but fulfilling their own ends, right? They want the government to act like a police state. They want a massive military. They want them to stomp down on things like abortion and trans people. They just don't want them intervening in the economy to help working people. Yeah. It's stuff like that, right? Like it's they'll say that they want a small government. They'll say that they don't trust government, but really they just want to use government to succeed or to fulfill their own ends. It's not anything real. It's completely disingenuous.
Well, exactly. Small government has only been a euphemism for I don't want specific people to do specific things. Government is actually really cool to them when it provides them tax incentives to start a business, when it provides them tax incentives to do other things, when it creates these carve-outs within the law so they can get away with, I don't know, contracting a subcontractor to a subcontractor that does literal slavery in Africa. Then government is actually really cool when it sets up for these things.
And I think that sort of trend is entirely among actual politicians and political commentators, but I think almost every regular citizen likes government intervention. Especially when you poll them on like economic policies that would help them, it's like 80% in favor of things like, again, Social Security, Medicare, and so on. But they either get angry when it's a policy not designed to specifically help them, something like student debt forgiveness, or they get mad when it's a policy they've been told to hate. You know, maybe the older Democratic policies of being a little bit nicer to immigrants. You know what I mean? It's all just regurgitating information you've heard. But I think in general, people are like the average citizen, the average worker is very much in favor of government intervention. Because it's good. It helps people, right? It's Keynesian economics.
Most people do like government, which is insane to hear that it's like this distrust of politicians that they are creating. Like these conservatives are getting in there. I distrust Democrats for different reasons. Democrats will do kind of the same thing when they bring up like legalizing weed every general election cycle, but don't actually do it. But the difference is they are not getting a bill proposed that does everything they want and actively choosing not to vote for it because they can't campaign on it then. You know what I mean? They just kind of don't bring it up. The sort of levels of distrust are very different and the games they play are very different. And in conservatives, it's just so in your face. I don't understand how anyone falls for it, but the reactionary mind is a fickle thing.
Well, and that's precisely it, right? Like being reactionary is the opposite of critical thinking. You're not thinking through your sort of emotional impulses or directly how you feel about things that are sort of streamed into your eyeballs from Fox News. None of it's critical thinking. It's all just reaction. Reaction everywhere.
Well, it's like, and we even have that embodied in another aspect of this Chip Roy interview. I watched 8 minutes of this guy where he just starts reading off line items of things that this bill funds. And he said, this bill gives $1.1 million to an EV innovation center, something that, you know, generally a good thing. And this bill also gives $1 million to some, I don't know, fucking clinic that transes kids or something.
Oh my God.
And it's like, brother, one, like, sure, these are line items. That is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. $1 million is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of $1.7 trillion overall, dog. That means nothing.
Once again, not complaining about the military spending or anything like that.
Not complaining about $500 chairs, not complaining about any other things anywhere else. We're going to bring up the line item about an EV innovation center.
Well, military spending is like half of all discretionary spending and has been for decades at this point. And we do nothing about it.
I'm sure I can find a conservative institute that does something that the government is going to be giving a handout to in this bill, and I could read off the line item, but I don't, because that's such a disingenuous way of talking about these large budget bills. You can comb through a $1.2 trillion proposal and find literally a billion things that you don't like. Oh my God, man. But I'm not a reactionary.
It's bad. No, I never would be.
Never would be.
Never would be. I think reactionaries are bad.
Yes.
And I think we could move on to talk about a reactionary.
Oh my goodness.
Actually, because we got some real reactions from both sides of the political spectrum that I think we should critique mindfully.
Okay.
You know us, mindful, just critical thinkers
You know
over
us,
here.
just be giving out nuanced takes and shit, you know what I'm saying?
So we're talking about Donald Trump. He was in the news a lot last week, as he is every week, but especially last week because he had some more, I'd say, Nazi-adjacent rhetoric that we could talk about.
Seems like we're just ramping this up more and more like every week with this guy.
Well, and funny enough, the thing that got a ton of attention is probably the adjacent thing to Nazism, but the other things that he said in the same speech are just like straight up Nazi shit.
Nice.
So we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Last week, Trump had a rally in Ohio where he was called out for using the term bloodbath, saying specifically or saying something along the lines of, it'll be a bloodbath if I don't get elected in this country. The right-wing response has basically been to say it's out of context. The liberals have obviously hyper-focused on this and replayed the clip over and over. Biden HQ, I think, basically clip-chimped him where it was just like 7 seconds of saying it'll be a bloodbath if I don't get elected.
Cool.
Which is like, okay, not a great look.
Sure.
But I think we should listen to the video in context.
Okay, I've been waiting for this because I've honestly been out of the loop on this bloodbath discourse.
Yeah, I want to, let's give the man a chance to speak for himself.
Let's get a live reaction.
Yeah, let's give the man a chance to speak for himself. So this is the video clip in context.
Okay.
He's at a rally in Ohio, so you hear cheering in the background. That's what it is. But let's give it a listen.
Big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. Now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
So, not exactly exonerating for Trump. He still used the word bloodbath, but he was clearly talking about car manufacturing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's a pretty disingenuous clip, Chip.
Yes,
I would,
think
and
so
that's
too.
kind of what I was starting to like lean to, like the little bits that I'd seen of it. But I knew we'd talk about it here, so I saved my nuanced take for then.
Yeah, but to be clear, a 100% tariff on foreign-made cars would be a bloodbath in the country.
Exactly.
That would be awful.
That would be insane. And it's like the issue that he's getting at is capital flight.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing he's talking about here is, car manufacturers shipping their labor force out to foreign countries and then them benefiting more from it and then us importing the cars at like a markup or whatever.
Yeah.
That's an issue with capital flight, an issue with capitalism.
Well, and that's what tariffs do, right? Especially when you're putting a tariff on a car that's already been made, that's already been paid for. You import it into the country. They're just going to raise the price to offset for the tariffs.
That's going to be
we've known tariffs do this.
What happened when he imposed tariffs on China?
Yeah, exactly.
It was awful for the American consumer and the American farmer who has started to go out of business.
Yeah.
And also, it's like, yes, it will be a bloodbath for the American consumer who wants to buy a car.
Yeah. But of course, Trump's implication here is that things are going to be really bad if I don't get elected. He uses the term bloodbath, which is what a lot of liberals have been sort of hyper-focusing on this past news week. But what I think deserves far more coverage is that at the same Ohio rally, Trump had this to say about undocumented immigrants. Quote, young people that are in jail for years, if you call them people, I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion. He goes on to say, I've seen the humanity. These are animals. Again, talking about undocumented immigrants. This was just before the comment about the bloodbath. And this is, to me, straight up dehumanizing rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
It's designed to make people okay or even in support of using violence against immigrants. And of course, this comes after Trump called Marxists or leftists or whatever vermin. Cool. He also said that immigrants were poisoning the blood of the nation however many months ago. It's fascism 101, right? You dehumanize a scapegoat to consolidate power around your agenda, and then you'd work to earn authorization from the public to do violence against that marginalized group.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about immigrants, the authorization is already there. I just wish, and liberals have wised up to a lot of what Trump says, and they label it as fascist nowadays, but they still lose the sort of, I just wish they could be a little bit more forceful with their criticism of Trump.
Or just correct.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know the bloodbath thing like this. I didn't stay in the loop about it, but I did see a lot about it. I saw a lot of tweets reacting to it from both sides. And now that I'm looking, It's kind of a nothing clip.
Yeah. But the thing he says before that is far more dangerous. Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. Just calling a group of people who are in desperate need of help animals.
Literal
that
subhuman.
They are less than people.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, this is the shit that leads to Greg Abbott saying that he would fucking shoot people at the border if it wasn't for Joe Biden. And this is what leads me to believe that should Trump take office, what is Greg Abbott going to do at the border?
Yeah.
Like, what is going to happen when he's talking so openly about a group of human beings not being human beings?
Right. And like, that's the thing is I wish we could focus on the actual dangerous things that Trump says and not necessarily on the spectacle around a term like bloodbath, right?
Yeah.
Because I get it. The term bloodbath, like it draws the eye because it's such a insane thing to say during a speech. But the things he said about undocumented immigrants is far more dangerous. Like, yeah, Trump is dumb. He's funny sometimes. He says crazy things that we should talk about. But the rhetoric and the policy at this point has escalated.
Yeah.
And you can point to where it has escalated. The euphemisms are dying at this point, and if liberals or anybody needed to be reminded of the sort of reactionary threat that's lurking behind us, this is the reminder. He talked about leftists as vermin. He said that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country, and I feel like hyper-focusing on something like the term bloodbath just misses the point entirely.
Well, that's been the issue with liberal coverage of Donald Trump ever since 2016. It has always, and conservatives are right. Conservatives are right when they get on and say, oh, they always want to talk about Donald Trump mean tweets, but why don't you focus on his policy? And genuinely, there was an era in the media where all liberal media was focusing on is Donald Trump mean tweets. It was all about how Donald Trump is not the respectable candidate, and this is just a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
This is, oh my God, Donald Trump said this term that we can give. If Joe Biden went out and said, oh, it would be a bloodbath, I don't think I'd fucking give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't think I would care. I feel like sure, it's a inflammatory term. Sure, it's got a little bit more flair on it. It got a little more swag than the rest of what these guys say. But it's not that crazy.
Yeah, I wish we could point out like the shit that he's actually saying. And like, to be fair, the poison the blood of the country stuff, like that did get a lot of attention back when he said it. But in this speech specifically, why is the media generally and liberals generally focusing so much on the bloodbath term?
Yeah.
Like he literally said undocumented immigrants are subhuman. Right wingers tried to walk that back and say, oh, he's just talking about MS-13, but like, he's been using that as a euphemism since 2015. You know what I mean?
But there's also the idea that Trump isn't a person that you have to hyper focus on these kind of things for. Trump does plenty of awful shit. Trump says plenty of crazy, asinine stuff.
Yeah.
You don't need to clip him out of context to get something.
Yeah.
You've never needed to clip Trump out of context.
And they still try to do it.
Like, oh my God, man.
They still try to do it. It's not necessary.
That's the reason why we can get on here and we can say, yeah, Trump is a funny guy. Like, Trump says some funny shit while also focusing on what matters.
Yeah.
Because we focus on what matters.
Just a little disappointing to see.
Everyone knows 2024, it's an election year, right? You know what else is an immutable fact? Wednesday weenies always lose to the weekly news cycle.
You're always behind.
This is even more undeniable in 2024. These primary Iowa caucus happening on a Monday. Super Tuesday, that's in the name.
Yeah.
Wednesday weenie, again in the name. If you want to get ahead of the news cycle, you need to head on over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod.
Listen, if you want the news when it happened rather than after it happened, consider becoming a patron. It's a good way to support the show, and it's a good way to stay up to date on everything this year as we deal with this tumultuous election season together.
Wear that Head in the Office patron badge on your sleeve. You can run around always. I'm a patron in the office. I get the news when it happens.
Back to the episode. But in some other Donald Trump news, we could talk about how he's fucking broke.
I can't fuck with broke boys.
He cannot post a money spread right now. So in the New York civil case related to him lying about his asset worth and lying about how much money he had and stuff like this, all to get different values of loans and very complicated stuff. Basically, lying about how much money he had.
Fraud.
Yes, committing fraud. He was ordered to pay almost $500 million once interest is applied. Of course, his net worth is higher than that, or so he claims.
Yes.
As far as we know. It's just an issue of him being able to liquidate assets, which he doesn't want to do. Typically, what you would do in this situation is just get a loan to pay off the fine, and then you'd pay off the loan. But a lot of organizations don't trust him anymore. Plus, it's $500 million.
Yeah, I don't know. When you get, what is it, like charged with fraud,
Yeah.
and you're found guilty of fraud or whatever happened here, I don't think anyone's really going to take in your own evaluations of your company and let you take out a lien on all your properties, or take out a loan, or take out mortgage all of your properties. Like he claims he'd have to mortgage half of his properties to be able to pay for this.
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow for these banks.
Yeah, it's like the Republican funding bucket's got a hole in it right now. And it's all going to Donald Trump.
Oh, literally, AP posted an article a couple days ago about how Trump sent out a letter for this big fundraising event that he's going to be having on April 6th. And within the letter, let me see if I could find it in this AP article that I had pulled up. He said some dumb shit. Here we go. The invitation's fine print says donations to the Trump 47 committee will first be used to give the maximum amount allowed under federal law to Trump's campaign. Anything left over from the donation next goes towards the maximum contribution to Save America, Trump's leadership PAC. And then anything left over from there goes to RNC and to state political parties.
That's so good.
And this is in the context of him successfully taking over the RNC and the RNC and Donald Trump's campaign running together as he's functionally the nominee and as his family is controlling the RNC and all of their money. He's just paying himself first, paying his lawyers, which have earned $76 million in the last 2 years. If you want to talk about who the big winners are post-COVID, it's the Donald Trump lawyers, baby. Let me tell you. But this is insane. And it's also crazy because Donald Trump has been facing massive fundraising concerns. I think he's at $56 million right now, on-hand cash that they have based on recent filings, while Joe Biden is at $144 million.
Yeah, and we're not even in the full swing of the campaign. Yeah. We're not even out of the primary season.
And Trump has whored himself out for this money.
He's fleecing his supporters.
He's really getting in there and robbing everyone he knows blind. And Joe Biden, it doesn't even feel like dude's campaigning. So it's already massive discrepancies in campaign funding while he's diverting all of these funds. What's interesting about Save America is it is a leadership PAC. Yeah. Leadership PACs cannot give most of their money to regular campaign functions. The hardest money to raise in a political campaign is money that you can directly spend on your campaign. Yeah. And he's not allocating most of the money he's getting to that. 85% of Save America's funds go to Trump's lawyers.
That's so
They
awesome.
are dedicated to paying his legal expenses.
I love how they said, and third, all the extra we got can go to all the campaigns around the country.
All the extra money we got can go to the entire RNC, which is the National Republican Party.
That's good.
Man, it's crazy. He's going to take him down.
What's his, who was it that took charge of the RNC? His daughter-in-law? Jared Kushner's wife, I think.
Isn't Ivanka?
Oh, no,
Jared, because Jared Kushner is the in-law.
Is it Don Jr.'s wife? I don't know.
I think it's Don Jr.'s wife.
Okay.
I can't remember
or
her
Eric,
name.
something like that.
Does Eric even have a wife? He stays out of the media, man. Yeah. He's somehow able to whatever.
Good for him. Yeah, whoever took over the RNC, I know they cleaned house. They went pretty crazy. Romney McDaniel is now out of a job. Pretty wild. Yeah, like the naysayers in the Republican Party are basically out. Not that there were a ton anyway, not that they held really any influence, but consolidation of power, it's been achieved. And they're funneling as much money as possible towards Trump.
Dude owns the RNC and he's draining it. He is absolutely draining it. And it's like, to be draining the RNC to this extent and still be losing to Sleepy Joe, that's a bad look, dog.
Well, yeah, we'll see. Polling's a little complicated right now.
Yeah, polling's looking down, but polling this far out is a bit.
That's why we don't even talk about it.
Exactly.
It's not even worth talking about for real. But also, so Trump's paying out a ton of money to this New York civil case. He's also got the E. Jean Carroll case. And then, of course, as you said, additional expenses like paying lawyers, traveling around the country, all of that you have to pay for. Trump's not doing too good.
No.
And since he's basically on record saying he can't pay off this penalty, it's possible that the New York Attorney General Letitia James might seize some of his property and sell it to pay off the fine, which would be so awesome.
That is kind of sick.
Oh my God.
I fuck with that. I've seen people come on and raise concerns about how maybe this will just make Trump supporters, maybe this will prove the political persecution claims correct. I think we are far past the point of any more legal action against Trump negatively affecting Biden's campaign or positively affecting Trump's more aptly, because I feel like the people that believe it, and not many more are going to be convinced.
Well, especially because the documents case, from what I know so far, is basically just going to side on Trump's side
Yeah.
because they have a sort of right-wing judge, I believe, and also that case was never the strongest that had been proposed.
The one where he was showing the reporters the launch codes or whatever.
That was always like one of the weakest ones. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
Even though we got him on
that
tape,
was the weakest
we got
one.
him on tape. And then of course the Colorado case where they're trying to remove him from the ballot. That one's done and gone. That one's not didn't succeed against Trump. And then the immunity case is still going to the Supreme Court. And I don't know where the Supreme Court will fall, but it seems like they'll just wait it out. And it's not going to matter once they make a decision after the November election. It really is they got Al Capone on tax evasion.
Exactly. Well, it's they're getting him on these fraud charges, which is going to fucking bankrupt the guy.
Yeah, good.
And then the most damning case being Georgia.
Yeah.
What the Atlanta Attorney General is doing, how, I don't know, like half his squad is up and snitched.
Yeah, but even that with Fannie Willis, right? That's the Georgia case. Even like she's been dragged through the mud.
There's been some fuck shit going on
the media. Yeah, it hasn't been good. I don't know how far that one goes, or if that one really like stays around culturally, or if Trump really gets in trouble for that stuff. I hope he does. But we'll see. The reason I bring this stuff up is because I don't know if we can really say based on how he's been treated by the law that he's being persecuted.
Well, we never could.
Yeah.
We never could say that Trump was being unfairly persecuted, that he was being unfairly attacked by Jack Smith, Fannie Willis, Letitia James, whoever.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's at the point where the continued attack, if you want to say it like that, the people who believe it, and the people who don't.
Yeah.
I don't think you're swaying anyone else by coming at him harder.
Yeah, and I think that was always the case. We've always said, like, just go after it.
Yeah.
Like,
and also, Law and Order podcast.
Yeah, you also got to think, like, the alternative is just letting him get away with it. And that can't be an option.
No, absolutely
right?
not.
Like, we can't just let political elites get away with things because we're afraid it could look bad.
Exactly.
That's not what the law says.
I'm cool letting, like, poor people off on things.
Of course.
But billionaires, no.
Come on now.
No.
Law and order over here.
That's right, buddy. It's law and order. Once you're in that top tax bracket,
Hey, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
That's
all I'm going to say. If you can't pay the fine, don't do the crime.
Bro. Oh my God.
I'm law and order over here. So Trump not looking good. Trump's rhetoric getting much worse.
No, but if we want to talk about rhetoric,
okay.
I got this story that I read in The Hill the other day.
All right.
Let me read you the headline.
Okay.
Biden campaign tests Trump's name calling strategy with, quote, broke Don.
Come on.
That's what I said. That's what I said. You're telling me you have thousands of campaign staffers. You have so many people, an entire party at your disposal. And you want to start getting in the boxing ring. And you come out with broke Don?
Make fun of his spray tan or something.
I'm saying, Don the Con, anything.
Yeah.
You could do so many things other than broke Don. And then throughout this article, I'm reading, and my mind's blown because, one, I think he should be calling Trump names. I'm pro name calling. So is most of America.
Pejoratives, do it.
So is most of America. I love a good ad hominem, right? But it's got to be done right.
Yeah.
You can't walk it. Oh, broke Don.
You know, a lot of Americans are broke, Joe, under your leadership.
Exactly.
You know?
There's that. Sleepy Joe's got a ring to it.
Oh, Sleepy Joe's good.
And to be fair, Trump's given out his fair share of shitty nicknames. Fair share. He doesn't always hit, but when he does, he does.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
If we're coming out with broke Don and failing with broke Don, and we're letting that move us away from the strategy, man, we're not learning anything.
Well, you know, the difference between the master and the pupil is that the master has failed more times than the pupil has tried.
Exactly.
And Trump just shoots him off as much as he can.
And
he even reuses them. He's like, I don't use Crooked Hillary. I say Crooked Joe now.
it's good. It works because there's a swag there.
Yeah.
But we're broke Don. Like, it's not.
That does feel like he was created by a focus group of like 25 people collaboratively with no input from people that actually know what's going on.
They're staffers that went to fucking George Washington, Yale, Harvard, the Demon Factory.
Yeah, there's got to be like a cut. I feel like we should stop accepting people into Biden's campaign that like have something higher than a bachelor's degree.
Absolutely.
You should be, if you've gone to too much school, you got a master's degree, PhD, like you should not be allowed to work for Joe Biden.
Out. This is so out of touch. And I'm reading through this article, and they're asking other Democratic strategists about what they think about this new strategy. You know what they're saying, bro? They're saying, what happened to the days of when they go low, we go high?
They're mad at, they think that's too far?
They think that's too far.
Jeez,
they think that
aren't we past that?
They think the American people think that that's too far.
Oh my God.
Motherfuckers love Trump. What are we talking about?
Call him a dumbass. Like,
I'm saying.
get caught on hot mic or something.
We need to go harder. These are broke down. These are first grade insults. There's so much more we could do.
That's so stupid.
We could personally attack the guy, and there's more that Joe Biden has done. He was at like a rally recently, and some guy talked about like how he was burdened with debt, and Joe Biden's like, "Oh, hi, Donald." Like, that's funny. That's fucking funny.
Well, and I think it's like Donald Trump's attacks are always he either just ignores reality or it's like straight up an ad hominem, like calling Joe Biden old and sleepy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't really say like, no, I'm not old, you're old. You know, that shit just doesn't work. I feel like calling him broke down, he's just going to retort with like, well, I'm a successful businessman and I'm only losing money because crooked Joe Biden's coming after me with the DOJ, like that kind of shit.
And he doesn't have the finesse to just roll with it and be like, broke down. Yeah. Broke boy.
Yeah, you call him a dumbass or something on stage. People would love that. I'd clap it up.
Oh my God, I'd be in there hooting and hollering.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you'd have to escort me out the building. You'd have to get me out of there. But my mind is blown that we're still at this point where people are going and saying, oh no, you can't name call Donald Trump. Really? Really?
Fire
are we
with fire,
being
baby.
fucking for real right now?
Fire with fire, burn down the whole country. I don't
When
care.
they go low, I go lower.
Yeah, I hit the level switch.
Exactly.
Actually, I go even lower.
Precisely. That's how you do it. You're never going to get a tackle if you don't. Oh my God, man.
That's so upsetting.
But broke down?
Yeah, it's like they think they're running Hillary Clinton in 2016 still.
Yeah, this
like,
is-
oh, we shouldn't act like Trump acts.
And this is Pokemon go to the polls level of cringe. Like,
Oh yeah, tic-tac-toe, good deal.
if they fucking launch Broke Dawn and it fails, they better realize it's because it's Broke Dawn and it's not because they're not going harder. Golly, man,
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's bad. That's
Absolutely
really bad.
ridiculous. A small story to wrap it up.
I guess one other thing is, did you see that there's a terror attack in Russia?
In Russia,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
I saw ISIS claimed responsibility,
Well,
and then everyone
come on
else
now.
was like, "What? Shut the fuck up."
Yeah, that was my thought. I was like, all right,
fucking
done.
old news, brother. What's going on?
Yeah.
And
You're
then
washed up. Move on.
I saw. I don't want to say it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, but maybe I just have Ukraine in my head.
Yeah.
I saw somebody try, or I think it was the Kremlin tried to say, "Oh, Ukraine did this."
Yeah, that's expected. A lot of people have said it's like a false flag operation, which I don't know. I haven't read a ton on it, but I haven't seen evidence for that just yet.
Yeah.
It might have just been a terror attack. You know what I mean? I think I don't want to cite a number, but I know that at least some people died from the attack. Pretty bad stuff.
Was
though.
it like 96 injured? I want to say that's that's like
maybe.
a figure that I saw. It was at a concert, right?
Yeah, it was like a populated thing. Not good to see.
No.
I hope it wasn't Ukraine because that would be crazy if they're just killing
Oh
civilians.
my God! I could you imagine what would happen in Congress if it was Ukraine?
Could you imagine what would happen in the online left?
Oh my God! The most annoying motherfuckers would come out of the woodwork.
It'd be bad. I don't want it to be a Ukraine attack because it'd be bad for me personally. If it inconveniences me, then I'm against it politically.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Oh my God! While we're talking about the online left, a thing that the online left has been loving to target Joe Biden about is how Joe Biden never did loan forgiveness.
Oh yeah.
Sort of, sidestepping any levels of thought or analysis.
Oh, especially because conservatives stopped it from happening.
Sidestepping
Supreme
any
Court.
understanding of the government and how conservatives stood in the way legislatively, and Donald Trump being able to stack the Supreme Court because Hillary lost in 2016 paved the way for student loan forgiveness never to go through ever. Big factor. Despite that, Joe Biden has come through with another round of forgiveness. This time it was $6 billion for people who qualify for, I think it's the public workers relief something.
Yeah,
There's something, or there's some program where
Yeah.
if you do public service, like if you're a teacher or a social worker or something like that, if you work somewhere for like 10 years or blah, 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 whatever, you can have your loans completely forgiven by the end
if you've
of it.
been consistent on your payments, yeah.
Exactly. And he threw $6 billion at the program, forgived a bunch of people's loans. It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I say this to say that he's at least trying a little bit.
And it's important for that program specifically because I think it was created by George W. Bush, which is like broken clock and all that. You know what I mean? So it was created a while ago, but back when it was created, it was, I would say, intentionally confusing and only ever accepted like 1% of all people that qualified for it. But now Joe Biden's taken a lot of steps to ensure that the people that do qualify are getting their forgiveness. And it's a good thing to see. I mean, because they followed the rules.
And it's also like the part of this program fundamentally is that these people are not paid enough to be able to ever get rid of their debt
Which is a
burden.
whole other critique of society, of course.
It's crazy that people who go into public service often are saddled with just the craziest student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do we need a program to forgive their debt? Why can't they just pay it, man? Or why can't ballooning college tuition come down? Why can't we bring down the price? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, and a lot of conservatives get angry when they hear about student debt forgiveness, even through like the public service forgiveness program. They just don't want people to have debts forgiven. But that's the biblical thing to do, brother.
I'm saying
Deuteronomy, every 7 years, forgive your debts. God said you'd be blessed.
God. It's the word.
Yeah.
The gospel, literally.
The gospel said to forgive your debts. I don't know why you're against Joe Biden trying to do the biblical thing.
And it's just crazy how every time I hear like conservatives talk about loan forgiveness, it always comes down to, well, what about how colleges can just raise their money, raise price of tuition and know the government's going to pay for it anyway? It's like, yeah, that's an issue too.
Yeah, do you really think I'm against regulating universities?
That's what I'm saying.
He's so for real.
It's a one-track way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you want to do this to an issue? What about this part of the issue? It's like, yeah.
Can we focus on one thing at a time, please?
One thing at a time, or we can do things like multiple things at once.
Mm-hmm.
We can forgive this debt because one, even if we got college tuition down, that does not stop the social worker who is $200,000 in debt and never has any hope of paying any of that money back.
Well, yeah, $200,000 now, triple their principal.
Exactly.
From when they exactly.
Yeah, they were on scholarship and everything. I saw this fucking CNN video this week. This guy got a history degree completely on scholarship, bachelor's paid for, and he's like, okay, I need to get my master's to reach the next level. Got his master's, saddled with so much debt, applied to 800 jobs, couldn't get one. Now he's a TikToker. I said, damn, bro, that sounds really familiar right now.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of conservatives, when you're talking about student debt, like to misdirect towards like colleges or whatever adjacent issue they can find. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about the economic effects or who deserves loan forgiveness, but it's about DEI programs and how much they hate younger generations.
Yeah. Well, it's college programs, raise tuition, and why are you getting a gender studies degree? Despite it being like, I don't know, like less than 2% of degrees awarded.
Yeah.
Or some minuscule amount of degrees
even
awarded.
Though half of all degrees are STEM.
I'm saying, and so I promise you, some person is out there with a gender studies degree fresh out of college making more money than me with my biochemistry degree.
Yeah, probably.
The S does not pay much, I can tell you that.
Gender studies usually just goes on to be like HR.
Yes. Yes.
Like HR people aren't paid, well, probably not paid enough.
Paid more than me.
Yeah, exactly. Not necessarily, I don't know, a bad thing, I would say.
Yeah. Well, conservatives gotta hate HR. They gotta have mad beef with their departments. Oh my goodness, people are too offended these days.
Yeah, and snowflakes.
Snowflakes, brother.
Nobody can handle being criticized. Nobody can take a joke anymore.
I'm saying, but you know people who can't take a joke?
You know people that are perfect in almost every way.
Perfect in almost every way.
No, literally every way.
Perfect literally every way, and that's why they're my best friends.
I'm close to these
all
people.
of them equally. They're like my children. I couldn't just pick one. I got to give a special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, 40% Spite, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutts, Veriuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benneth Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Jonathan Cassis, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, Sewer Snack, Ellie-N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grotler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gon, Aquana Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Ishi Teddy, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Valenic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brennan His Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Zen doing their best. Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Southwest Socialism, Jared Finch, Evil Vegan, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Willie Swags, Chris E, Kashan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Real Nurse RN, Ashley White, Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Classified Jones, Lauren, and Uncrasmatic Boar, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. The glow of these wonderful lights would be impossible without your support.
I'm saying.
I couldn't do it without you. I wouldn't want to.
Frankly, I wouldn't be coming to work and fucking working every Sunday if it wasn't for you, huh? I'd be a goddamn lazy liberal.
I need some reason to get out of bed, and thanks to you, I'm not a fucking liberal.
Yeah, every morning I wake up and I go, say yes to Wes, Anna Belinda.
I see your names floating.
Exactly. And I'm like, crawling, it's floating all the way to the living room where I can go fucking make my liberal avocado toast and never be able to buy a house. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. We'll see you next week.
Have a great one.